In the year 2028, one Big Mac will equal $1 million. From the Gospel of John McAfee. Bro, just learn to code. The Project Freedom Podcast.
Boom. I'm Josh from ELP, and welcome to the Project Freedom Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything that has to do with freedom. I got tonight Greg B back again for another juicy conversation. And the topic for tonight, guys, is going to be boomers. So, if you guys don't know what a boomer is, hashtag boom. If you guys don't know what a boomer is, I mean, obviously, most of you guys probably know when boomers are pejorative for a specific generation being the baby boomers, right, guys? You guys know that. But I also wanted to preface it by saying to you guys that boomer is not just like an age generation, okay? These people, obviously this generation, they viewed the world and specifically the financial, the way that the world is financially, is very different for them. Pretty much everything, man. I'd venture to say, like socially, economically, everything was very different for these people, and so they have a completely different mindset than people do from our generation, or even like Gen X. I would think so too. But Gen X was still able to benefit financially a lot of the ways that the boomers were, whereas the millennials weren't. But thus, when we say boomer, we're really meaning like people who have the boomer mindset. Okay, not specifically the generational period of people, although those people are the ones who have that mindset. And I guess, okay, so if we want to discuss the specific generation, we can just preface that before we say that. So, but yeah, that's what we mean by boomers. Would that be a solid definition, you think, for boomer, Greg?
Well, look, I mean, I would say, well, firstly, good to be back with you, Josh. Thank you for having me on again. I think the boomer generation, right? I mean, it's obviously it's kind of a pejorative that us millennial types use to kind of make fun of the folks from that kind of generation of, I want to say it's like the mid 40s to like the mid or late 60s. And I think that's a good kind of way of describing it because it's a unique generation. It's a unique period of time in United States history. Where there was there were certain benefits and advantages that I to a large degree don't think a lot of us see today.
Right. I think so too. So real quick, I got this article I want to share, and specifically about the generational period too. So I guess we should preface that. But guys, check this out over here. If I can find it real quick. Give me 1 second, fellas. 1 second. Let me pull this up for you guys. And somebody brought this to my attention today, actually. My dad. So a boomer brought this to my attention today. So I thought it'd be funny and good to share. So check this article out, guys. Whoops. There we go. All right. So the article is titled, Nearly 2/3 of millennials earning over $100K a year report living paycheck to paycheck. Okay. I already see you shaking your head, Greg. Without getting too deep into this, a new survey conducted by PYMENTS and Lending Club, which analyzed the financial data of roughly 30,000 Americans. I mean, it's a small subset, but I mean, I know from personal experience, people that I know that are essentially in this situation, right? 30,000 Americans found that 60% of millennials making $100,000 a year still said they're living paycheck to paycheck. That surprising figure was not far off from the 70% of millennials in total who reported living paycheck to paycheck. So the data found that 60% had said, and then they took surveys where 70% of them basically said that they were living paycheck to paycheck. Millennials and individuals are individuals born between 1981 and 1996. Okay. In the survey, those living paycheck to paycheck were defined as consumers who, quote, manage to pay their monthly bills but have little left over. And this just goes on, and they don't really give any like solid reasons why. They put some more data. So like the survey found that 70% of consumers have less than 15% $15,000 in savings, and one third of all consumers have less. One third of all consumers is less than $1,000. So I don't know. I think with this, I think that's got to be to do with that specific subset of people. Because, dude, I've seen all kinds of like data and surveys before that say like, basically like majority of Americans in general just have way less than that. Like can't cover $1,000 emergency, right? So, all right. So I saw you shaking your head in the beginning there. Something's off about that, right? Like something's just flat out wrong, right? So what would you think is the reason why? I mean, remember back? I mean, we were young back in these days, but shoot, dude, let's look like back in like 2010, man, like freshman year of college or senior year of high school, junior year of college, or whatever, right? $100K was like quite a bit of money back then, right?
Yeah, it was a decent amount, but I think, and you kind of touched on it there. Like, I think more importantly, we could even go back in history and look at the greatest generation, right? The folks that were, coming back from these big world wars that were, really, involved in these things. And, and they say like, hard times create strong people and the strong people create good times, and good times then, create slightly weaker people. And I think there's something to be said for that, because, what we see nowadays is we see people continuously saying like, I live paycheck to paycheck, 100,000, 200,000. I've seen ridiculous numbers like, 250,000 is middle class. I mean, that to me is just, it's absolutely ridiculous. It is 100% people trying to keep up with the Joneses and living above their means. And I don't mean that to be, talking down to anybody or saying that they should, inherently, come suffer with plebs, if you will. But there is something to be said for making sacrifices, having an emergency fund, staying out of massive amounts of credit card debt. Like I always give crap to, Dave Ramsey because, he talks about a few things that I disagree with, but, the core message there is extremely important and extremely valuable for a lot of people, which is like, you should have a savings. You should be able to cover, a couple $1,000s of unexpected expenses. I mean, the fact that people don't have plans for these things is really very indicative, in my opinion, of a society of people who have grown up and been so comfortable for so many decades now. And this isn't this right here. That's not a problem of just the boomers. That's the boomers. That's and every generation after them thus far. I think maybe the what do they call the new generation? Gen Alpha or Gen Z? The Gen Z right behind us and Gen Alpha behind them, the younger ones.
Zoomers.
Yeah, the Zoomers. And those folks, I think, are starting to see kind of the cracks in the walls there, if you will, of, what all that comfort breeds, and realizing like, maybe I should, stash away a little bit of money. Maybe I shouldn't just blow it all on, going to have a fun time on the weekend, because, if you look back, we haven't had to worry about that for quite some time. Everything could be easily put on a credit card and paid off later at very low rates. There was plenty of purchasing power with the money that we had. We didn't have the money supply increasing like it did. There's been a lot of changes in the last couple of years that I don't think people are fully aware of yet. They're gonna come and they're gonna smack a lot of people in the face very soon here, and it's gonna be ugly, in my opinion.
I would agree. And the part that you brought up about purchasing power. So, okay. Let's take a step back real quick. So you had mentioned some things like obviously keeping up with the Joneses, right? I think that is in large a part of the, in my opinion, the way that we view $100,000 a year, it's not what it used to be, right? But still, regardless, if you're making $100,000 a year, you should be able to have some money saved up, in my personal opinion, right? Because I know from personal experience that you can be able to do that, right? So, it kind of just seems unexcusable. However, at the same time, I don't know if all that is keeping up with the Joneses. Okay. But okay. Yeah. So like, look, so I live in Miami, right? And this is like the number one, this place is the capital of keeping up with the Joneses, essentially. I venture to say that a majority of people here, the amount of money that they portray to have, you probably take that, cut it in half, and then probably divide it by 4, and that's how much they really have, right? In fact, most people probably have no money to their name for a majority of the time because, I mean, they're paying like $5,000 a month in rent, and they got to go out and eat like a $60 lunch every day, and then a $90 dinner at night, right? So, okay, I think that that's definitely part of it, right? And we do live in America, the number one city, the number one country of vanity, right? But at the same time, dude, like, okay, so without getting like too personal, like financially, I would say I'm a 6-figure earner. Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I know for a fact that I'm a 6-figure earner, right? North of that $100,000 a year mark. All right. It wasn't something that's handed to me, and I'm not trying to like. If anyone's listening, I'm not trying to like be Chadwick Thundercock over here and be like, "Oh, I make so much money." But I entered that threshold some time ago, and like, dude, like honestly, bro, it was like, man, it would have been hard for me to like. I would have to like try to like live paycheck to paycheck, and so granted, there was times where I would live paycheck to paycheck because I was putting that money somewhere else, right? I was like I was not using it. So my version of living paycheck to paycheck was I'm spending my money on my bills and the rest of this has got to go into something. Like I don't want to touch it, right? But I don't think that's the problem in this. I think that I think that these people, they just have a lack of, right?
I think these people are consuming too much avocado toast, Josh. do you think putting down the avocado toast for brunch and maybe going with the Corbel instead of the Verve would, solve the problem? I'm being facetious, of course, but, I think there's something to be said for, pulling back on the excesses a little bit.
For sure. But okay, but something has to be wrong about, like, something just seems off about that. Okay. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering if that potentially has something to do with the loss of purchasing power. Okay. I think that's just one problem, right? And there's other problems as well. Okay. So like, let's take a look at like, I'll use my dad for an example. Okay. When he was at the age of a college student, he was able to work a full-time, like not a full-time job, but work a sufficient amount of hours as a server in a restaurant to bus tables, to also go to school at the same time, and he could pay for that schooling with his job, and he could buy a brand new car without a loan by saving up from working as a server at a restaurant, right? Cars back then, like a brand new car would be like, man, like a Swazi one would be like $3 or $4 grand, right? And a house too. Like, I mean, rent was, I would venture to say, a lot cheaper back then too, right? Now, like, imagine having $100,000 a year back then. Really good money, right? Like serious money.
A much further way than it does today. Absolutely. And that's
right.
Obviously, that's a factor of inflation, and it's no secret at this point that inflation is hitting. You saw the numbers that I think they came out yesterday or this morning. Obviously they've hit the Twitterverse and the Facebook a little bit. Gas up 40%. Food and rent is up somewhere in the ballpark of like 10% or so. These are not numbers that can be overlooked. And yes, and just stopping the avocado toast is not going to solve that problem.
Right.
That's very much ignoring the larger problem, which is our exorbitant spending at the federal level here.
Right. So I think that's a problem too. However, that being said, I think that it's not an impossibility for people that are making that much money to be able to save up and buy a home, right? Although in the last year that might be a little bit like further, that goalpost is knocked a little bit further away, right? But
it's moving quickly ahead of most people.
Yeah. But I would like to tie that in with the topic for tonight, because like a lot of this too, I think a lot of these people who are living paycheck to paycheck too, it's because at the same time, they're still living they still have that boomer mindset. And so they think that just doing the same thing that the previous generations were able to do, that they should be perfectly fine. Right. And they're not putting the onus on themselves, I believe, to say, okay, something's not right with this. I'm making $100,000 a year and I can't seem to do anything other than live paycheck to paycheck. Maybe there's something that I'm doing, take a look introspectively and look into themselves. Maybe there's something that I'm doing that I could do differently that could get me out of the situation. But before we get into that, let me get caught up with the chat because I was completely ignoring the chat. So let's see who's in the house tonight. Cody Mouse, Boomers, am I right? Yes, indeed. Boomers, am I right? Solo D checking in. Sam Perchinsky, boom. Also Chain in the house says hashtag boom, orange pill, licky tongue emoji. Wade Emery, hey guys, orange pill emoji. Justin Schaefer, that's Ashley Schaefer, BMW's cousin in the house. What's up, dude? Kyle W says, let's go. Max Dignitas says, boomers gonna boom. Yes, indeed. Nick Sledgian says, not knowing what boomers are is some real Gen Z shit. Sam Perchinsky says, back in my day, we had grit, ... Yeah, I mean, y'all had grit too, but there was a couple other things I would venture to say y'all also had that a lot of people didn't have or don't have today. Appliance Guy says, yo, had to rep. What is up, my friend? Got a slight echo. Thank you for letting me know. We'll probably should probably open a window here in a second. It might be from me or you, Greg. I'm not really sure. Sam Perchinsky says, lifestyle creep. Yeah, I think lifestyle creep has something to do with it as well. But I mean, again, that's not the whole entire problem. Cody Mouse says, tell Greg to get some damn AirPods. LMAO. I'll send you some for the next one, Greg.
Right.
Antonio,
I've got the Sonys. I like.
You got the Sonys. The Sonys are superior, I would say. Antonio says, yo, killers. Vlad B-1 says 100K subs this quarter. Let's go. Let's fucking do it.
Shout out to the Q3 chats.
Yeah, indeed. Red Sings the Blues. Sup, man? What's up, dude? How you been? His channel's doing pretty good too. Tom Graff. Brunch is corrupting America? Like brunch, do you mean, Tom, do you mean like the like breakfast at Tiffany's brunch? I'm not quite sure. Who else is in here? Justin Schaefer says again, make more, spend less, and invest the difference. As a 21-year-old, this is my Bible. Wow, it's the smartest 21-year-old I've interacted with in the last 48 hours, I'd have to say. But Greg, back on that topic. Okay, so what knowledge do you think that most boomers lack, all right, in order to make that introspective look into themselves and say, all right, something is wrong here, okay? I need to possibly adjust the way that I live in order to make this get done. And again, guys, in this subset of people, we're not referring to just boomers in the age range, okay? We're talking about people who live the boomer mentality.
Yeah, and I don't mean to, crap on the boomer generation or any of that, because I see a lot of this same mentality going on in our own age group, Josh. I'm sure you see it as well. And I think it really boils down to the normalcy bias, right? It's a bunch of folks who have kind of lived in the same mindset for the past, 10, 15 years and been like, okay, well, everything will stay roughly the same. Money is going to continue to buy me exactly the same things. But yet, when we start to see things happen like the disappearance of the McDonald's dollar menu or the price of rent going up significantly, the price of gas and food and everything else around us going up significantly, you don't see people really changing their habits too much, until they become uncomfortable and they really become forced to do so. I don't see people a lot of the time changing their habits, and that is 100% normalcy bias. That is being reactive rather than proactive, and I think that is a huge problem, not just with the baby boomer generation, but with ours and the other ones between us and the boomers as well.
Right, and so that's why I use the term boomer. I mean, like, dude, we have boomers that are in our generation, man. They think that. Okay, so this is in my mind what a boomer is, not referring to just the age group alone. Okay, yeah. Be a good boy, go to school, no matter what it is. You study whatever you want to study. If underwater basket weaving is your passion in life, right? Go and get a doctorate in it. And if you get that doctorate, something that you love, you'll make money off it. You make a lot of money off it, right? It doesn't matter, right?
You get a career, and you get a career.
Right. No matter what you study, right? And then what's next? Buy the house, right? which honestly, man, at the prices that houses are right now, like unless in my mind, unless you're 100% going to be like, unless you have a good deal on a house, all right, and it's in a good location and you've done your due diligence, or unless it's an investment property, okay. So in that case, it's it's not something that you're stuck. You want to be for sure that you'd be okay with for 30 years, just in case it took you the whole 30 years to pay off, right? So it's something that you're going to make money off of and flip in return. That white picket metropolitan house that people are buying, that is probably like a solid $2 or $3 or $4, sometimes $500,000 more than what they should be affording for a first time house. That's not the best thing to do, right? But that was the best thing that the boomer generation could do to start their financial life off, right? That was basically the first thing that you would do, right? And why was it? Because houses weren't exorbitantly expensive back then, and they were all able to profit over a timeline of 10 or 20 years to be able to get the asset appreciation, right? But I'd say that how many people do you think are millennials? So let's just say millennial boomers too. But how many people do you think that are in the millennial age group could even own, what percent do you think are homeowners? I really don't know.
God, I believe last time I checked, it was extremely low. And I mean shockingly low.
Under 50%?
Even today, I've been in the market for a house for a while. I kind of, I had the chance in 2019 before the Corona crash. In hindsight being 2020, I'm like, damn, I should have bought at that point. But I talked to a lot of folks that are, roughly around our age group as well. And I see a lot of people looking to buy, and they are competing against the likes of Blackstone and BlackRock and 20 other offers of other millennials that are also trying to get into those same kind of starter homes. What's becoming a rare commodity nowadays is those single family kind of starter homes with 1 or 2 bedrooms, maybe 3 if you're going to go a little bit more extreme with it. But, those are becoming harder to come by nowadays. And as we see, the housing market going up and, way up in price, it's boxing a lot of people out, even if they are getting raises and cost of living increases that are keeping up with inflation. These asset prices are going up. They're going up at a rate that is becoming harder and harder for folks to chase, that are in that millennial age group.
Right. And now it's now it's almost like people feel pressured to have to go and buy a house because it's fuck, the time's running. It's FOMO, basically, right? That's what it is, FOMO, right? When they could have easily, maybe if they were just doing the right thing years ago, have gotten a lot, maybe a lot cheaper of a house. Maybe maybe they should have just sacrificed and said, okay, maybe instead of the 4-bedroom huge house that's in, beautiful suburbia, I could get this other house, maybe get a duplex and rent out one side and then live in the other. So that way I'm basically paying half of the note, not all of it, or something like that. And I'm not saying that just because that's what I did, but I mean, the reason I did it was because, well, I had a reason for it, right? Wasn't just trying to buy the first house that I could just so I could be I'm a house owner. I was doing something very different that I don't know any one of my peers from people that I graduated school with or from back at home who did that at all. Literally nobody, right?
Well,
it ended up being in my favor, but it was risk, right?
Yeah, they think it's unattainable. They think they can't get to that point. And as a result, a lot of them don't even make the effort to do so. And I'm, on the one hand, I'm kind of happy because I'm like, yeah, you guys stay out of the market so I can get all the good deals. But, on the other hand, that, I feel bad because it's a lot of people who otherwise could be doing, what you're doing and what others are doing, you got to give a shout out to places like Bigger Pockets on YouTube and some of these other places where, they talk about how to do house hacking and how to do that, live-in landlord kind of situation or buying a duplex or a triplex or a 4-flat and how to do your first home purchase. A lot of people just are not doing the work. They're not doing the research. They're not trying to figure it out. And I think part of that is the cope of being well, it's too expensive. Everything is running away. And as a result, I don't have to sacrifice and I can just continue, doing what I'm doing and then complain about the inability to get into a cheap house later. But, it's disingenuous on a lot of people's part. I think there's a degree of that going on as well. It's a lack of motivation to do so for many folks.
Yeah, I would agree. But it's obviously not just the houses too, right? That's just one part of it too, right?
Yeah.
So like we talked about earlier, I think that a lot of it too, as well, is because other generations or other people didn't get to have that same sort of financial benefit that the baby boomer generation did, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just look at, like, for instance, I used to hear a lot of people saying, like, well, you just got to work your way through college with a little elbow grease. And I'm like, do you realize how much college costs nowadays? And I broke the numbers down for people a long time ago. And I think it was like, you would have to have a strong, like, middle class job, making, $40,000-$50,000 a year in order to really work your way through college. There's no way to work your way through college now.
If even that, dude.
Well, right. You'd have to go out into the workforce. You'd have to work for a number of years, spend zero money, then you could pay off college. And I think college is it would be kind of ridiculous if we didn't point out, the debt burden that people have gotten themselves into. And I'm guilty of that myself. I fell for the work smart, not hard, go to the best college you can get into for the networking and all of that. And it's,
right.
And a lot of people got hoodwinked into that. And that's, I think where we see this advent of the student loan forgiveness train that everyone's seeming to jump on. But as the saying goes, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And unfortunately, this whole that the millennial generation has really dug themselves into when it comes to loans and student loans and debt, it doesn't have an easy answer. We can't just snap our fingers and and make that go away, because even if we do, all we're doing is adding that debt right onto the top. We're just causing everything to go up in price, as we do that. These are not real solutions to the root problems here.
Right. Okay, so we have the houses, one, right? Obviously, the cost of college tuition now is insanely high. I'd argue to say also too, like, way too many people are going to college that shouldn't be going to college nowadays as well. And I think that's just that just adds to the numbers. But what else is there? Baby boomers had a lot better access to they had a lot more access to credit. Is that incorrect, or am I right about that?
I would say probably less so, just because we can look back into like the 80s and the mid late early 80s. I remember there was a lot of mortgages at the time that were being given out at like ridiculous rates, and I mean ridiculous rates, like 15-20%. I've heard and seen in recent examples from some of the folks I've been talking to. But again, different scenarios being played out there here. Like, we have almost free credit, like to be able to get a mortgage for 2.5, 3%, 3.5 even. To be, I don't know about you, but I get a constant flurry of credit card balance transfer offers. Hey, we got 0% here. We got 0% for purchases, 18 months, 24 months. We're talking like free borrowing, compared to what was before. Now, when we have a debt jubilee, the generations before us really had stronger money, but not as much ability to borrow. So it's kind of, it is maybe it's a grass is greener, kind of scenario. It's just
trade-off, huh?
As that trade-off occurs and as that, that calculus changes, I mean, that's one of the biggest things, is that we have to be agile and realizing that is, that we have to pay attention to that. We have to adjust our habits. We have to adjust the way that we view credit and debt and money to more advantageously take advantage of things happening in the markets today, that are very different than what happened in yesteryear.
Definitely very different. But okay, well, what else would you say is something that generation, that timeline of people had it better access to than we did, that might be a cause of this problem?
I don't know. It's really hard to say. I think, we really, in America at least, and I'm speaking very, United States centric here, But I think we really were truly in kind of a golden era for the United States between that, like, all the way from, the 70s up through the 90s, and then things I think really started to go and look, and I don't blame anyone for taking advantage or kind of resting on our laurels during that period of time. Things were easy. They were very easy. I remember growing up in the 90s as a child, and I mean, I couldn't have asked for better. It was very middle class, very, the American dream, if you will. And then once 2001 hit with the dot-com boom and crash, 2007, 2008 with the housing bubble, and then we come to, today with the wild money printing that we see coming out of the Federal Reserve. These are two very different eras in America. You had that time of stability and predictability. And I think predictability is maybe the best way to put it. The prior generations had predictability. They could plan things. They could take a job, and be like, yep, I'm on track for my pension. I'm going to retire at 65. I'm going to do, these things, and everything is going to work out. For us, I mean, most people I talk to nowadays, they're like, I'm going to probably work till I die, and I'll keep hopping around jobs for the next one that gives me the, $1 raise. And I don't blame people for that, because that's that agility that I'm talking about. And then, now, obviously Business Insider will be like, millennials have ruined this and millennials have ruined that. But, I don't care, frankly. It's, people need to be looking out for themselves in this market and this kind of financial scenario, and they need to be doing what is best for them. Resting on our laurels, getting too comfortable in a position nowadays is a quick recipe for getting left behind, and you don't feel like you're getting left behind. And I think that's the trap of it. People don't realize. They're like, well, I got my 3% cost of living increase. That's not going to cover your increased gas prices, your increased rent prices.
Yeah. So,
is it 3%? What's that?
Is it actually 3%?
Well, no. I mean, when I say cost of living, I mean like what I'm seeing given out in corporate America and these regular jobs that are giving these COLA increases. 3 to 5% seems to be a fairly normal type of increase. And I would say to people, it's like, look, 3 to 5% is not going to cut it. I know we mentioned this on the last podcast we were on together, but if you're not really getting that 10 to 15%, even 20% increase year on year on your money, on your income, you're probably getting left behind. And people may or may not know that. And that is a situation that we did not see with the baby boomer generation, with the generation before ours. They didn't have that where money was being printed at such a breakneck speed that you had to constantly have in the back of your mind, man, I got to be getting yield. I have to be increasing my positions in corporate, in my paychecks, in order to actually maintain just where I'm standing wealth-wise right now. That is a huge, big difference, and I think that's one of the biggest advantages is predictability.
All right, I think so too. I would have to wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, I think just times are different now, right? Like this is not the same atmosphere anymore, right? Let me get caught up with the chat again real quick. Nick Sledging says millennials don't have kids at Sam. Yeah, that's another thing too. So like, and they also don't have kids too. So like they theoretically speaking, they should have more money, right? Cody Mouse says the Zoomers are just materializing on their own. Well, I mean, I think some of the Zoomers were Generation X's kids too, but I think also millennials kids as well. Yeah. Virens 4 says, what's up, guys? What is up, my friend? Tom Graff says it's easier to have saving mindset when the money is tight growing up. Yeah, I would think that would be the case for sure, man. Justin Schaefer says, make more, spend less, and invest the difference. As a 21-year-old, this is my bill. I think I actually did read that one earlier. I don't know if Justin reposted that or if I just hit the same comment.
Worth repeating.
Yes, it was worth repeating. The quad Drata says, hey, boys, I'm glad I found this community. Let's go. Let's fucking go, my friend. Tom Graff says, avocado toast makes me think of brunch. Yes, it would. Christian Soto in the chat with the Big Mac emojis. Solo says, boomer mindset, just work a factory job and be set for life. But factory jobs nowadays isn't skilled labor and are replaced by robots already. Good point. Technological unemployment too. And that's something that I think, like, dude, honestly, like, okay, so the whole thing that you just said about the 4 or 5% increase, actually the nationwide salaried employee average increase for just like the year-on-year increase is like 2%. I would venture to say that it's probably like most people probably get 1%, if not any a raise at all, right? I mean, there's a reason why I've been to like 6 different companies in 6 different years. It was like, well, am I going to take a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a year raise, or I'm going to go to another place and make 25 grand more? I mean, it literally makes no sense to have this like quote unquote company loyalty anymore, because are they loyal to you? They're not even giving you enough money to outpace inflation, right? So
they don't give you a 2 weeks notice when they're going to let you go.
No, definitely not, right? So yeah, totally. Nick Sledge says, check out the Company Man, old book, great on the concept of these. Follow the plan, guys. Yeah, and another thing too, guys. I mean, we're not trying to say like you shouldn't be working at all. Getting a job is a means to an end, right? Like even if you have your escape plan, you can't go from being unemployed to 100% financially sovereign with doing nothing, right? So Cody Mouse says, sign up for the Boomer Mindset course, link in the bio. Cody, I'm going to come get that course ASAP.
I love
it. Good point that Fido says in here, you can always buy a house abroad. Yeah, that's true, man. And I know somebody who bought a house in South America. They didn't just buy the house. They bought land, and they actually built a house brand new for just $15,000. And I was like, dude, it's a gorgeous house. I can send you pictures after the stream, man. It's pretty solid for what you get for the money. Saint Chocolate says, what's up, gang? What is up, my friend? Artemis Cameron in the house says, good evening. Good evening to you as well, my friend. Who else is in here? The Black Sheep says, bring back the beard, the 2-day beard. All right. Look, you want me to grow the 2-day beard back again? All right. So today is what, guys? It is, let me check my phone. It's Wednesday. I should know because it's the day I have a stream. All right, Black Sheep. I'll shave. I will not shave until Sunday. And then if I shave before, Monday. So if I'm not shaved, if I'm shaved in the Monday stream, you can come in here yourself, Black Sheep, and come and persecute me. Appliance Guy says there was lots of corporate loyalty in the day. Yeah, and Appliance Guy would know. That's Parrish, by the way. If you didn't know, Greg, he would know because I mean he's part of that generation. So and he's no spring chicken either. He knows a lot of stuff. Yeah. Anna V says compared to FNF's last live stream topic, this is relaxing. Modern Life Dating says proud of you, man, and we are proud of you as well. Wade Emery says proud of you, MLT. Cody Mel says take the beards pill, ELP. Maybe I will. Maybe I will take the beard pill. Someone told me that because I said that when I tried to grow that. Greg, you've had a beautiful beard quite a few times.
Yeah, I actually just trimmed before the stream. I didn't really want to. I've been meaning to do it for the last couple of weeks. I've been moving, but
You didn't come here and AMOG me, dude. I know that. I know why. You didn't want to AMOG me. Look, I was telling somebody in the stream before. Every time I try to grow a beard, like day 5, it's just like so incredibly itchy that it's like disgusting for me. And then also I immediately break out. Someone was like, "Oh, dude, just take horse tranquilizer pills. It stops the itch."
I mean, that's like Benadryl. You can't have a sniffle when you got a coma.
Right. All right. So, okay. So back to the topic at hand. Obviously, I think the real answer. I mean, we pointed out some big things, right? Like, okay, obviously inflation, right? The housing stuff. People aren't. I would say that what Appliance Guy was saying in the chat about there was more corporate company loyalty back in the day. I think so, but I think that it was because companies used to, not all of them, right? Not all of them, but some good companies would actually take care of their employees. And I actually don't know any real company anymore. Like, especially if you look at like big tech, like none of them actually like truly make their employees feel good. So I think that's why. I think that sentiment is different, but okay. So we come to the conclusion that all these things, plus the combination of the fact that the world is just like, it's just not the same, right? So you can't have that boomer mindset and then be able to be financially sovereign and free or just safe, like at least enough enough wits about you to like keep yourself relevant financially, right? So these people don't know this stuff. So do you think, well, okay, do you think they're aware of this? Do you think boomers and people who have the boomer mindset are aware of this kind of thing?
I mean, I would say yes and no. I see people kind of starting to wake up from it because it's hard to miss. When gas prices have almost doubled in 1 year, when rent is going up, when you can't buy a house, when it's becoming difficult again to get a credit card, a line of credit. Wells Fargo, that was big news the other day. They were shuttering consumer lines of credit.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Pool reported that he couldn't get a mortgage, and Tim Pool is by no means poor at all. You know what I mean? And so people see these indicators and they kind of go like, maybe something is going on here. But that, like I said, man, that normalcy bias, that ability of people to sit in that comfort zone for too long is a very dangerous thing, because until it really hits them personally, right? Like where they're like, oh crap, all of a sudden I actually cannot afford groceries. It doesn't become real for many people. You know what I mean? And that's like from you and I growing up, we'd see stuff on the news and it was like, oh yeah, that's the news. But it doesn't really affect us. It's not really on our doorstep. It's not doing anything that directly impacts us today. But this does. It's just, again, it's a lagging indicator. It's something that, it takes time to kind of settle in. And that's what's so insidious about money printing, is people don't realize it's a stealth tax. It's making the dollars that are in your pocket progressively worth less and less and less the longer that they sit there and the longer that you don't spend them.
Right, man. Right. So the late great Michael Saylor once said something that really, really, really hit me really hard. It was something along the lines of, okay, if you're on a boat, right? You're on a cruise ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, right? You might have heard this before. You're on a cruise ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background. My dog's tearing up a plant or something, so just try to ignore the crazy dog. But you're on a cruise ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, right? And you and 100 other people are on the boat, right? And you know that the boat's sinking, right? You know, because you saw the hole. Right, it's very quiet. The hole's in a non obvious area, right? And you know that time's running out, right? So what do? At that point, you become obsessed. You become obsessed with the lifeboat, right? You become obsessed with the escape vector, right?
Yep.
And so you know that you know what's happening. You know the time's ticking. So you're obsessed with the life raft, right? And you care about other people too, right? So you want to go and you're like knocking on doors, right? And let's just say it's like 12 o'clock at night. Everyone's drunk, pounding out their wives like a mallard duck, eating some good dinner, doing whatever people do on the fucking cruise. And you're knocking on the door. You're like, guys, you got to come. You got to come to the life raft. Come, look, the life raft. You got to come to the life raft. And they're just going to be like, dude, the fuck are you doing? Like, leave me alone, right? Because if you don't know that the boat's sinking, then at that point, the life raft is just like, first of all, it's out of mind, out of sight. But second of all, if someone just comes and tries to bring you to it, it's a nuisance to you, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think. That's a huge part of it too. Like they're so old and stuck in their ways that they have like, what's the average age of like a boomer now, right? Like, shit, dude, like 60 years old, maybe?
Yeah, late 50s, 60s.
Right. Like, imagine having to undo 60 years of programming, right? On top of that, too, like, they don't know the same thing. Like, the whole, like, I can't say this word out loud, but FAKENEWS, if you know what I mean. Like, that wasn't even, like, a thing until, like, I don't know, a couple of years ago. I mean, dude, back in my day, and I've talked to you about conspiracy theory stuff before. Back in my good old day, back in the good old college days of Ole Miss, I was a huge conspiracy theorist, and like I was telling my dad all the time, like all this stuff, and he's like, no fucking way. I told him about who's the guy with the island and the kids, that guy. I told him that he was told him about all that stuff.
Yeah, but he didn't kill himself.
He did. Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. We'll never know, right? But I don't think he did, but all that stuff came true, and it like blew his mind, and slowly but surely. And so I'm going to use my dad as an example because I mean he's a boomer, right? He's a base boomer, like I've said in previous streams, but he's a boomer. And as many times as these things come true, he still doesn't. He still is like, no, like what the news told me, like it's a fact, right? And so that's why they think that. But okay, do you think that they're going to be able to change their minds about any of this stuff? Do they have a chance?
I think so. And I know before the stream I said, I doubt many of them will, but giving it a little bit more thought, I do think that people can change their minds, and they are changing their minds. I mean, like I said, with everything accelerating as quickly as it is, and with things devolving in various areas around the globe as we speak, people are starting to take notice to say like, something's happening over here. The news isn't covering it. No one's talking about these things. Where can I go to get this information? And that begins that kind of slippery slope into figuring out what is actually going on in the world when people kind of break free of that mainstream media narrative, because it's just that. It's a narrative. The days of Walter Cronkite and legitimate news where it's just news are gone. That's been dead and gone for a long time now. News isn't even news. I mean, they call it the news, but really it's editorialized opinions constantly being put forward. And I love it as much as the next guy. Plenty of drama, plenty of fun, Orange Man Bad, all of that. Love it, terribly entertaining.
Wait. What else? What else is bad? We know this guy's bad too, right?
Of course.
Bad too.
Of course.
Orange everything bad, guys.
As our Lord and Savior Jerome Powell said today, he's like, well, if we only had a digital US dollar, people wouldn't need stable coins like USDC or to be in cryptocurrencies. And I was like, wow, this guy seriously thinks we are that stupid, and I don't mean to, be hyperbolic either. It's like they actually treat people nowadays like we are so dumb that we don't realize that printing, half of the entire money supply within the span of a year and a half has no consequences. They seriously think that they can pull that over on us. I mean, that is right there is so incredibly insulting to anyone who is listening to this person that it is.
That's pretty insulting, dude. But I would say, okay, that's fine. You guys want to put your CBDC, and you guys want us to use your CBDC as opposed to like USDC or Tether or one of the other like bazillion different like stable coins are out there now. All right, that's fine. Put it on the Ethereum network, and it's where all this code for the smart contracts publicly open. And then, okay, that's fine. They'll use it. And it's on. And at that point, look, if they want to do that, that's actually a great idea because, okay, first of all, it's on the Ethereum network, right? So that's them one step closer into our world, and that's one step less that they can do to fuck with the money, right? If they had stuff in the smart contract to just like burn any amount of money or whatever, or to add any amount of money, or anytime money was minted, we would know about it too, right? On top of that too, like
yes, auditable. That would be fantastic.
Right. I think that wouldn't be a bad idea, but of course they'll never do that, right? They're never going to do that. Of course,
that will never ever happen, right?
Yeah.
And again, this is not even that's not even the whole story. They say it like that. Oh, you wouldn't even need to be in it, but then at the same time they would still print all of that. And what I think he was kind of, and I'm speculating here, but the veiled threat there is basically like, we're going to take away crypto, and then we're going to say that you can hang out in digital US dollar land. And I think that it's not an answer, and he knows it's not an answer. We know that it's not an answer, and he knows that we know that it's not an answer. The only people that this is fooling at this point are the people who've been tuned into the mainstream media for the last 20, 30 years and just refuse to get outside of that bubble. And those people, to go back to your original question, was I don't think those people can really be saved, because they will always watch CNN or Fox or MSNBC or whatever their preferred news network is. And when people like us come along and say like, hey, they're printing, all of the money, that is in existence today, yesterday, tomorrow, they don't believe us, and I think that's very funny. You mentioned conspiracy theories, and I used to be somewhat of a conspiracy theorist myself, but apparently I'm now retired because all of that's come true over the last, 5-6 years, and you can't cook them up as fast as the news, passes us by at this point. So, there's something to be said for trying to get people on board and trying to, lend a helping hand to folks. But at a certain point, you got to cut your losses and be like, okay, you know what? If you want to be, you want to have fun being poor over there and just let inflation destroy your life savings and all of that, have at it. The rest of us who are paying attention, we're going to be agile, we're going to adapt, and we're going to try to figure out new and creative ways to stay ahead of the inflation, stay ahead of the trend, secure our wealth, have real assets, do these different things, so that we can have that same prosperity that we saw in much of the baby boomer generation.
Right. But when that happens, then they're just going to blame it on us and say that we don't deserve it, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there will be a Business Insider article that'll say millennials have killed off the pension funds or some nonsense like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're the easy, whipping boy, if you will, for all of the economic ruin that happens. When in reality, I place that blame squarely, in D.C. and at the Federal Reserve.
Yep. Speaking of pension funds, Artemis Cameron says in the chat, most companies had pension funds along with good 401k matching. My dad makes more retired on his pension than he did when he was working. He hasn't even touched his 401k and doesn't plan to until 70. Yeah. And what are the chances nowadays that you can find like a similar thing? Dude, a company, the place I'm working at now, they do 100% match. If you want to put money in a 401k, they do 100% match all the way up to like 30%, which is quite big. That's a lot, right? Most places wouldn't be willing or able to do that. And that's like, dude, that's like a huge rarity nowadays, right? It's almost like an impossibility as well. Yep. Vlad B says we all lose the crypto in the boating accident if we were in the mid-Atlantic. I lost my crypto, guys, and it wasn't in a boating accident. You see this right here, this balcony window. So you see how I keep it open. One day I had my ledger out. I was just like chilling my ledger, and I was like, hey guys, look at this. And then a pigeon came in from out of nowhere and just swooped it up and then just like came out. And I was like, man, that sucks. Gilligan's Island ? Slippery Pickle says, so what's the solution to preserve our wealth then, fellas? You want to answer that one, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, you got to chase the yield. You have to chase the yield. You have to be aggressive in getting raises and cost of living increases. You have to stay ahead of that. I mean, do the work. Right. There's no easy answer, really. I mean, there's no magic formula to it. It's a multi-pronged approach. It's do more at your job, get more money out of that. Make sure that your investments are performing, year on year. You should be getting that 16, 20%, you gotta beat all of this inflation. And that's how you're gonna do it. You gotta do the work.
You literally have no choice, right? Like you literally have no choice. Or, like I was saying in my last stream, have fun staying poor. And I don't mean that. I mean that obviously somewhat facetiously, right?
Not just staying poor, becoming poorer.
Right. Because okay.
Stress that enough. Like, even if you continue to make the same amount of money, and this is a mentality thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, but if you continue to make the same amount of money and the money becomes worth less money over time, even though you haven't gone down, you haven't gotten demoted, you haven't, gotten a pay cut, you're effectively getting a pay cut because you can't buy as much stuff. And that right there is a novel concept that I think people need to wrap their heads around nowadays.
Right, man. I mean, look at housing prices up 30%, not 30% in 1 year. All right. So Slippery Pickle, like think about it like this. If your next goal in life to get one up is to maybe purchase a house, right? If you're not making at least 30% extra the next year, then you're not even breaking even, my friend. Like you're literally not even breaking even. So what do? Man, like as shitty as it is to say, like you have to job hop if you need extra money. You need to get a second or third stream of income. You need to find some kind of skill to procure you that income. You need to take your money and chase the yield, like Greg said. I mean, I do all the above, right? So like, like anything that you can do to make more money and chase yield with your current money and just be live tactically and tasteful about it. It can be done, man. Like, for example, like, dude, I hardly ever eat out anymore. Like I really don't. Like it makes me cringe. And I have this thing where it's like, if I spend more than $50 a week on food, I'm like, I feel like really bad inside. And dude, like 3 years ago, dude, I could spend like $600, $700, $800 a week on food. Not bat an eye about it. So like things like that too, Slippery Pickle, like just, pushing your purchasing down and chasing yield and getting more money. There literally is no other way. Like, this is the way.
Yep.
Do you agree with that?
Yep. Well, the other thing I can say too is, to plug your services, Josh, learn to code. There's tons and tons and tons of opportunities out there, people. You just have to go out there and get it. You got to get off your butt. I know that the 9 to 5 is hard. It puts a mental strain, but once you get home from work, the time is not ready to sleep and sit on the couch and watch the TV. The time is to learn that new skill. It's to get out there and work on your side hustle. We're young. We have time. We have the energy to do this, and we have to take advantage of that while we can.
Yep. Sam Perchinsky says crypto, metals, real estate, GUNS, seeds, and invest in your skill set. Yeah, I mean, that's like pretty much it. Like, I don't know. I mean, am I missing something? Is there anything else? Is there like I mean, I guess we could all like 100x long Doge and just like hope that we we could just like massively speculate on stuff. But I don't think there's anything else at the top of my head other than the things that just make sense and just like are, obvious, right?
Yep. The answers are right there. We just have to do them.
The Quadratus says, if memory serves me correctly, the UK rated their elderly population's pensions during 2008 and 9. It isn't safe in all caps fiat. Yeah, dude. I mean, like, we know. I mean, guys, why do you think I do all this like eccentric shit with the orange pill? Like, as cheesy as it is, like without sounding like a maxi, like that's one solution to a problem. And this is considered, this guy up here in the top right, this is considered antiquated technology, right? But that antiquated technology is light years ahead of our current monetary system. You know what, Greg? I was thinking about this the other day. Yeah. You know what Bitcoin really did, other than NGU, invent NGU technology? It privatized the monetary network. Like, it's the privatization of money, right? Because who made the money throughout all of human history? Governments. Yeah. Right. And so like now, when the people have their own form of money that they can create and design better than the governments, I mean, it actually seems to work not so awful, at least better than what they have. There's a reason why the governments don't like it.
Understatement of the century, Josh. If I recall correctly, over the past 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is, Bitcoin has been the best performing asset, period, hands down, end of story. All the way back from its inception in 2008 and people, early adopters, starting to play with it in 2010, 2011 to today, hands down. If you just put your money in that, you'd have made a killing.
Yeah, look at Max Kaiser.
Yeah, I have been listening to Max since way back then. If only I had taken him more seriously, but at the time I just thought he was an eccentric guy on Russia Today.
He's pretty fun to watch and listen to, right?
Oh yeah. Him and Stacy are great people.
Yeah, for sure. And Up V says, got to watch out for the crypto pigeon mafia. Yeah, you got to be super careful about those pigeons, man. Mohammed from the corner store says, Greg, looking classy. I love it. Thank you. I think Greg appreciates that too. Max Dignitas says, don't forget tax efficiency. Yeah, that too. If you've read the book Tax Free Wealth from Robert Kiyosaki, right?
I have not read that one yet, but not tax evasion. Tax evasion is illegal. Talk to your CPAs, talk to your tax attorneys, but the strategies of minimizing taxes is clutch.
Right.
You have to be paying attention to that.
And it's legal. And the reason it's legal is because what the government does is they assign tax breaks to people to incentivize people to do the things they want the people to do, right? And if you read that book, the book basically explains that to you, right? It doesn't necessarily say, okay, if you look at this tax and this tax and this tax, right? But the mindset of it is to be able to when you see new things coming up that you can take advantage of for tax breaks, it's because the government is incentivizing you to do so, right? And people are too afraid to go do these non-conventional methods of tax breaking, right? Or deducting things. I mean, everyone's usually used to just like business deducting things, right? But I mean, for example, the whole like green clean energy narrative that's going on right now.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
Right. There's so many tax incentives open for that right now because why? Because the government wants people to like put their money into that stuff, right? And people are gonna take their money and make and earn and also save a boatload of money by taking advantage of just changes in things that are just happening in everyday life that the government just creates to incentivize you guys to save money on taxes because they want you to do what they want. So in essence, you're doing what they want. Slippery Pickle says, thanks for the response. You're welcome, man. Thank you for the question. I think that was a good one, man. Cody Mouse says, funds are not safe. Craig Hoteling says, is there any news that China or Russia could announce regarding the U.S. dollar that would cause a rush into crypto or otherwise erode confidence in fiat currency? Good question.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, the fear with many people, and I think it bears discussing is, a new Bretton Woods conference, if you will, a move away from the United States dollar as a world reserve currency and starting to see. And the reality is we already are starting to see that. And it is striking a lot of people in a lot of markets because as China and Russia begin to trade in their own native currencies, as Iran avoids us because of, sanctions and all of these things, if dollar dominance drops, that is a major, major threat to the hegemony of the United States. Both, physically and militarily, but, I would argue more importantly in the 21st century here, financially.
Right. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Russia is already trying to not use U.S. dollars for selling their oil, right?
Correct. And there's many countries that have been looking at doing that. There was the BRICS group, which is like Brazil, Russia, China, India, and somebody else. But yeah, I mean, there's many of these plans that have kind of cropped up over the years. Libya was a good example, and we saw what happened to Libya as a result of that. I won't get into that one, but yeah, I mean, we can only go so far with enforcing the petrodollar via our military might, and so this is why I talk about diversification. This is why I talk about, someone mentioned property in other countries. And if you have the ability to do things like that and to be diversified into assets and classes of things that are not United States based, you will probably weather some of these international conflicts a little bit better than maybe the local populations in those affected countries would be otherwise.
Mohammed from the corner store again says, they just revealed that inflation is the highest it has been in 30 years. I can't believe most people aren't doing nothing about it. I don't even try to save them anymore. Let them feel the decline. Look, yeah, I mean, that they claim it's the highest it's been in 30 years. They said that today. I just said that yesterday, right? Look, I already knew that. I'm not going to be like, I'm so fucking smart. I mean, guys, it's not obvious to see. Like, honestly, guys, to be completely honest with you, if you just do a little bit of math, all right. I'm not going to explain how or why. Go to usdebtclock.org or maybe it's .com. All right. If you guys just do a little bit of math, you'll see that most likely you'll see that this is possibly the most inflation that we've had in the country in our history, right? Literally in all of the history of the United States of America. Okay, not just 30 years. So, and I think it's painfully obvious, even though they're out there saying like, oh, it's 4%.
My favorite.
Out of here.
It's transitory. It's temporary.
Oh yeah, right.
That's
right.
I'm like, yeah, sure, Mr. Powell. If what you mean by that is it's extreme and it is probably permanent, then sure, then sure you're right.
Yeah, permanent and extreme. That means transitory. Look at it was somebody. It was either in a webinar that I was in 2 nights ago, or it was my last stream. But somebody Googled. One of the viewers Google searched I told them Google search the price of one McDonald's Big Mac in Venezuela, and it's like 3.5 million. There were 37.5 million bolivar. Some ridiculous, dude. Right? Guys, this isn't like this stuff doesn't just like never happen. It's not like us having a crazy inflation is just like a complete impossibility, right? So, that's what we're talking about. This stuff, guys. We're trying to spread the good news of our Lord and Savior over here. All right, guys. This is not just for us and our entertainment or your entertainment, right? We're seriously trying to help some of you people. Okay. I'm not saying, go out there and make a huge ass order on this, right? I mean, don't spend your rent money, because then you're just continuing the millennial problem that we have. But the way that things are right now, like it's a different world. We'll say that at least, right? Cody Mouse says, to add to the hoteling guy, most of their blank is nonsense to a certain extent. In my opinion, all markets operate on cycles. Crypto is no different. Now, certain events might speed the cycle, but that is all the same. Yeah, I mean, good point. I can't necessarily totally agree or disagree with that. Solo D says you can't save people, but you can save doll hairs to get some crypto. Another thing too, guys, like you can't give, in the same way that you guys can't give your friends the Crimson Capsule until they need it. Like they have to want to seek the Crimson Capsule, right? You guys already all know that yourselves, at least for my Crimson Capsule people in here. The same thing goes for the orange pill. Like you can't just go and shove the orange pill down someone's throat, right? They have to want to seek it, and they will seek it whenever the time is right for them. It's just, hopefully it's not super, super late for them.
Yeah.
Kyle W says, US debt clock, USDC, blank. US debt clock, USDC, Even in X Files. Nick Sled says transitory inflation means prices going up and then they stay up. I mean, all right. But another problem here too about this, Greg, is that like, are the wages going up to accommodate for it in the last year? Like, okay, so has everyone gotten a 30% raise?
MSNBC, yeah, the positive of inflation is higher wages. Woo. Yeah. I would ask anyone out there in the audience and anyone who watches this video, tell us, have your wages increased 15, 20% at the same job this year? Because I would venture to guess that the number is less than 1% that have seen that kind of wage increase in 1 year.
Yeah, seriously, guys. And if you're watching this on the replay, let us know. Drop a comment if you actually did get a wage increase of above. Let's just drop it to 15. We don't even make it 30. 10%. Yeah, 10%. And you didn't get an extra stream of income. You didn't change positions. You stayed in the same exact place. Like you did nothing different. You just stayed at the same exact single solitary stream of income, and they just happened to give you a 10% raise. Let us know in the chat or drop a comment if you're watching the replay, because let's see if we get none. I bet we're not going to get some, but if we do, I'll be surprised.
I would be shocked.
Anna V says mine increased to 0%, so I job hopped. Smart man. That's the thing you got to do. That's why we talk about this stuff, guys. Like,
go where you're treated best. Go where you're treated best.
Exactly. Okay, so back to the boomer topic at hand. Is there anything we can learn from the boomers?
Yeah, I mean, I would say obviously not to rest on our laurels. As I've said before, be agile, be paying attention. But the other thing that I would say is, to a certain degree, I think the one thing that the boomers did have right, and by that I specifically mean the older generation, is take vacations, treat yourself here and there, but do those things in moderation, because on the other end of the spectrum, I do see a lot of people who will work themselves into the ground, and burnout is a very real thing. And I think that is important. I see people hit the burnout stage, and when you do that, that's jarring on your life, on your work. If you're working a small business or a side gig or something, burnout where you just decide for multiple weeks in a row, like you can't do it, you don't want to, deal with your customers or whatever, that'll destroy a small business. So, it is important to kind of try to achieve that work-life balance. And I know that's far easier said than done. I'm right there with everybody else in that regard. But, that's something that we can learn, from the baby boomer generation. They did take more vacations. They did, try to kind of do some of those enjoyable activities. But, we just maybe need to tone that down, the excesses of it a little bit.
I don't think that's bad advice. I mean, essentially, we have to, kind of learn from their mistakes as well, right? It's kind of like part of that. Real quick, I thought this comment was funny, so check this comment out. Christopher Boyd says, I doubled my salary in the past year, and then he says, but I'm in China, so.
Shout out to my brother, yep.
My God. Yeah, I mean, think about that, guys. I mean, That's
The
not
China
that stuff's
pill,
not really happening here.
it's a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, China's getting pretty base. All right, man. Let me before I ask this other question for you, Appliance Guy says, keep learning and become more self-sufficient and be able to not be so dependent on others for your immediate problems. Hold on one second.
Yep, absolutely. 100%.
Thank you. Most people don't even Appliance Guy. Most people don't even begin to think about putting the blame and the onus on themselves. They're automatic. They default to, that's not my fault. I should have to pay that rent, right? And then he says, be able to fix leaky sinks. Yeah, fix your mower, etc. Okay, Appliance Guy, Greg too. You'll think this is funny. Speaking of this, so I'm in the process of selling my house right now, right?
Yeah.
When they just did the inspection and like they came with like a long line of lists of stuff they wanted to ask us to fix and like make extra money or give them extra money for too. One of the things, dude, it was stuff like the toilet seat was not 100% screwed in, and I'm like, lady, I know you're in your late 30s and you never owned a house before, but like, you need to learn. I'm not going to give you $2,000 extra because you want me to screw the toilet seat in. Like you're gonna have to learn how to be a homeowner eventually. Idiot.
For that. My God, that is the epitome of having zero skills. And actually, shout out to Appliance Guy on that, because I think that's one thing I left out is learning from the boomer generation. Do your own work, change your own oil, rotate your own tires, learn how to fix the dang faucet. These are not terribly complex things, but you'd be surprised how many people that just have no idea how to do it. They don't want to learn how to do it, and they would much rather pay someone, an exorbitant amount of money to do those things for them. That's worse than avocado toast, in my opinion.
Right, dude. There's no excuse to be able to like have to pay someone $150, $200 to come and like get your sink to stop leaking. And I'm not talking about like something getting ripped out, but like the basic stuff that happens when a sink would leak, having to rethread the screw from the little splasher thing, or just something as dumb as that, man. All right. So, okay. Off-topic question to end up this whole thing. We had a lot of craziness going on in the in the market lately, dude. So, are you a bull or are you a bear? And I know we kind of talked about this beforehand. It might not be not the most solid answer you can give, but I'll let you answer first, and then I'll say my piece about it.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I've said in many of our chats, and obviously in the crypto groups and all of that, I kind of jokingly always say that I'm kind of a perma bear when it comes to these things, because even in times of when things are plenty and everything is otherwise stable, I do like to very much view the market in a let me underestimate what the market will do and then allow it to later over deliver, so I can say, wow, look at how well things have turned out. And that mentality does two things for me. One, it keeps me from counting my chickens before they hatch, and I love moon math as much as the next guy, but at the same time, I do see a lot of folks making the mistake of kind of starting to count those chickens before they even have it. You got to work and you got to get there and you got to get money in the market and do different things and have assets before those can start generating yield and actual value for you long term. And then, and secondly, then it just allows myself mentally to be, pleasantly surprised when, we have small movements in the market that, you can take advantage of. I can say like, oh, okay, well, that's nice. It went up a few percent or what have you. So that way you're not on this emotional roller coaster, because, when we talk about emotions in the market, I mean, that's one of the most dangerous things. That's when people make mistakes. That's when they do things impulsively. They are not looking at data, doing those things, and kind of whatever you can do to get that emotion out of it, the better. But to answer your question, I think, if I had to say, just from following everybody that I follow nowadays, I mean, you heard me say even months ago now, I expected a boring quarter three. We're obviously starting to approach that, and it's starting to look like we're heading down that direction. I don't see that trend reversing. We look at Bitcoin, we look at Ethereum, in the crypto markets are generally down, but, us that got in a little bit early, we can't complain. We're still up quite a bit, or at least break even. And for those of you that are, not financial advice. I'd say, keep hanging in there, keep rolling with the punches here, and over time, the markets generally will reward us. Just, as everyone always says, you know, time in the market is generally going to beat timing the market, and now when it comes to things like the housing market or, regular equities and futures and things, that's very hard to predict. I mean, look at things over the last 10 years. It's just been up and to the right, up and to the right. And why is that? I think it's got a lot to do with inflation, because all of this extra money that's being printed, that is all going into, it's just sloshing about in these financial markets. This money isn't going out to small businesses. I mean, sure, they gave us a little pittance of those small business loans. I know some individuals took advantage of those, and that's great. But when you look at the sheer amount of money that went to banks and Wall Street and these different organizations versus what we as consumers and the average everyday people got, I mean, the difference is it's stark. It's that money went straight to the markets, and the people who were already positioned have profited handsomely off of that, and they will continue to do so, because the longer that we see Congress doing what they're doing, the more it's becoming apparent to me that they don't even want to pretend that they're doing anything to benefit people anymore. It's almost outright like, okay, well, we're going to print another couple $1 trillion, and again, we're going to maybe give you like $500 to not riot, and then we're going to take the rest of the money and we're going to give it to our friends over here in Wall Street, and do more insider trading. Yeah, and again, I hate to be bearish about that, but I think these things oftentimes are ignored as we're like, number go up, everything is great, moon math and all of that. But I do think, looking at the larger market, looking at geopolitical scenarios playing out as we speak, those things can't be ignored, and people should be paying attention as to and considering the risk analysis associated with these different external factors. Because as Cody pointed out, markets are always in a cycle. There's always going to be ups, there's always going to be downs. And when it comes specifically to crypto, all of us that are in now, we're extremely early. But we are starting to get to that kind of late 90s stage of the internet, if you will, kind of on that crypto adoption curve, I think. And so you're going to start to see those diminishing returns over time. You're going to start to see cycles becoming longer accumulation periods. And stock market's going to do similar things until crypto and, the stock market really fully decouple. I look forward to that day where, the fiat world kind of starts to fall away and we end up having a real accounting of money and value stored, whether that be the orange coin or whether that be some other instrument soon to be created. So it's hard to say. These are very turbulent times. They're very different. We haven't seen things like this going on globally and in the markets in quite some time. And I think people are in for a wild ride. But I will say I haven't sold anything. I still haven't sold anything.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that. Well, you know better than to sell. I know you do for sure. Not to say that like taking profits isn't a bad idea, like periodically as well throughout time. I mean, always should. But all right, but okay. So a little bit of bearish like sentiment between like pretty much everyone right now, which is I think is normal. But okay, I would say I think that there's like, I mean, dude, there is just I don't know how it could get more obvious that there's just like manipulation going on. So with me prefacing that, would you be surprised if out of nowhere we just saw a massive parabolic move to the upside? Like when it not talking about like right now, let's just say like between now and the end of the year where it just catches people off guard. Would that just like put you in shock if that happened? Or would you be like, I'm
assuming we're talking crypto, right?
Yes, crypto only, yes.
Would not surprise me whatsoever. I mean, when everything pumps, everyone is shocked always, and then it'll be back on the news and back on CNBC, and and the cycle will repeat itself. Once you've been in the market for a while, it stops being entertaining. It's very similar to the China's banning crypto news that seems to be novel news to everybody every 6 months when they announce it again. So these things are not novel. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, like if some big giant corporations come out and they're like, we're putting billions in Bitcoin, that could pump the price. If the Federal Reserve comes out with some, terrible numbers or terrible jobs report, you could see people starting to, to flee into Bitcoin, to flee into Ethereum and things. And I do think that will accelerate faster than people expect. That, obviously now we have an accumulation period. We have a time where, I'm buying, I'm assessing new projects and things and figuring out, okay, what are going to be the next positions for this next big run up, and trying to figure out where I can best position my assets that are going to do the best for me in that case. But, when that happens, it's hard to time, no one really knows. I mean, we could, I've seen reports that we could be looking at prolonged, bear market, if you will. And I don't like to get into is the bear market over, because I just think it's the stuff of normies, and the kind of the folks who are not in the markets trying to speculate about these grandiose trends and trying to make sense of things. But the reality is that if you look at charts and you start to zoom in and kind of pan around, you'll see that there is always ups and downs. It's constant, whether you subscribe to like, the 60-day cycles, or whether, you're looking at retracements or any of these other, tools that we use to kind of analyze the markets. There's always opportunity. It's just a matter of, how willing you are to kind of trade those smaller bands, trade those smaller channels, or, do any of that stuff within a sideways chopping market. And I think, everyone's been kind of blessed in the last 6-7 months with, just constant up and to the right action. And that's a lot of euphoria. And, and what we're seeing right now with everyone being so dang bearish is that, once you take the air out of that balloon for a lot of people who, especially the folks who are newer, they really, they get kind of downtrodden about it. And I think it's, it's something that comes with experience over time. It will bother you guys less, those of you listening that are a little bit newer that maybe are down on things. It will bother you less. It'll be less concerning, less anxiety producing. And I think that bears repeating.
I think that's pretty solid advice. Also, man, not financial advice. Definitely not.
This is what I'm doing and what I'm looking at doing. Like I always tell people, I'm like, you've got to do your own research. You've got to figure things out. You've got to, pay attention, because look at CNBC, look at the news. We were just talking about how things are misrepresented. Don't believe what, me and Josh are saying. Go out there, do that work, figure these things out for yourselves, because those, like when you said, like someone asked earlier, like, how do we make money? How do we beat that 15, 20%? That's how you do it. You do the work, you figure out how to make that work for you, and you start learning why things occur and how you can, work that into your repertoire, rather than just following some Instagram guru who flashes money in a Lambo and pretends to be rich. It's not a get rich quick scheme. None of these things are. It takes work, whether it be real estate, stocks, equities, futures, crypto, whatever.
Agreed. Solid advice. And one thing too, man, it's like, okay, all right. So what if it's all over? All right, it's going to 10K. If your goal, I mean, dude,
I backed the truck up at 10K, brother.
Yeah, dude, for sure, dude. That's what I was about to say. Like, okay, I was on the phone with Michael. You remember Michael Z?
Yeah, of course.
It's my good buddy now. I was on the phone with him earlier today, and I was like, we were talking about this too, and I was like, is it going to zero? Is it going to zero? And he's like, all right, well, I mean, like, let's be real. If your goal is to accumulate as much biddy after everything is all over as you possibly can, and you're not so concerned with the fiat value. Your goal is to collect as much biddy as you can, and that goes to 10K. Well, then you don't have to do all these flippings and these tradings and taking profits and laddering out and then like waiting for the dust to settle and then buying the biddy at the bottom. Like, then you just go straight to a payment on rail and just boom, buy and 10K, right? So like Is that really? Would it really be so bad if it's over? I mean, quote unquote over for now.
Well, and when we say over, I think what we mean is going into a prolonged bear market.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
multi-year bear market where everything is just kind of ho-hum. Everybody, all the popularity leaves the market, and we go back to basics. And you know what? I wouldn't have any problem with that. Why? Because one, I didn't invest more than I can't lose, and two, I don't need that money, right? So like I can leave that there. I can trade it around. I can mess with it in the market and not worry about it whatsoever. I can continue to pay my rent, eat, pay my bills, etc. But another thing that I think needs to be pointed out here is not all like when we oftentimes will look at the order books and things and try to figure out like, okay, well, what's the market doing? How many orders are in it, and for how much of these coins at whatever prices. Let's use the orange one, right? I think 20K will be a very, very heavy support range, and even in the mid 20s, for God's sakes, like, because not everybody has their orders just sitting there as limit orders in the market. A lot of people will snipe good prices. Like I don't use a lot of limit orders. I have a few, but I don't have just big limit orders sitting at 10K. I mean, it's
right.
Why would I do that? You know what I mean?
That's kind of far fetched, man. I mean, dude, it's been having a hard time going past 28. It's like as soon as it does, boop, right back up. And that's because people are all now starting to think like that. It's like, man, that's a good price. Got to suck that up ASAP.
Right, and people are like, oh, it's got no support, and then you see it'll just keep bouncing on that 28, 29 level, and I'm like, oh, It seems to have pretty good support, despite the lack of on order book volume, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, like, if it hits 10K, how long? Let's be realistic here. The sentiment and the understanding people have about the orange coin, and let's just again use the orange coin for example, is completely different than it was a year ago. People are starting to wake up. You know what else isn't stopping anytime soon? This up here in the top right corner. That's not stopping anytime soon. So if you guys thought those sweet gains were good this year, my God, if this doesn't stop, which it's not, right? Which this is not stopping anytime soon. That doesn't stop. Just imagine the sweet games to come, in the years ahead, which are just going to be absurd, dude. Absolutely insane. At least that's how I feel about it. But yeah, I would have to agree with that, Greg. 100%, man. So I think it was pretty good, pretty solid. I mean, dude, I could talk to you on the phone for like 4 hours, honestly. Like, pretty solid talks all around. Hope you guys got something out of that tonight, y'all. If you didn't, then just send me a hate email and just tell me why you didn't get anything out of it, and tell me why you hate me. But if you did, send me a nice email. Tell me how much you loved it, or like, comment, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Also, too, guys, like, if you think there's something we missed out on here, please drop a comment in the comment section. I will, like, I don't even care. Look, I'm seriously not concerned about the algorithm. I mean, obviously I am, but I actually do want to know from you guys. So if you just simply want to email it to me or DM me on Instagram or message me on Telegram, let me know. And next time me and Greg come and talk, we'll try to discuss that as well. Also, real quick as well, guys, if you guys, speaking of the whole payment processing thing and ERC20 and crypto and blah, 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 the new generation, if you guys run a small business or have some kind of online store, anything that you want to accept money from on the internet that you have, and you don't want to particularly take US dollars, maybe you want to take, I don't know, Ethereum or some sort of ERC20 token, go to SeviPay.com, SEVIIPAY.com. This is a channel sponsor, guys. A good buddy of mine created this service, and guys, basically, like, it's pretty streamlined. You can basically just hit them up. They'll send you a button with whatever amount, create an order, set an account up for you, and all you have to do is copy and paste a couple lines of code in your website, and then boom, you're ready to receive Ethereum instantly. Right now, he's still looking to get, I think he wants 10 total people for beta customers to try it out. So, like, the next, I mean, I think, like, I got one of the spots taken up, right? Because this is a channel sponsor. But I think there's either like 8 or 7 spots left, and he'll give it to you guys for free. He guys, I believe, I don't know how long he wants to let you guys do it for free for, possibly a whole year. But you guys would basically be able to have access to the service on your website for a whole year and accept and receive Ethereum per payment. Just in case you just so happen to prefer Ethereum over the United States dollar. But if not, keep doing what you're doing. And that's all I had for tonight. Greg, do you have anything else, my man?
No, I think that's about it, Josh. We got to do it again. Again, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
100%. All right, guys. Thank y'all for joining, and we are out.